welcome to another Silverbird Selection game review video, and today we're looking at a game called the Willow Pattern, released in this Silver Range packaging I think in 1986, but it was actually originally released by Firebird in 1985 in their Super Silver Range, which I think cost £3.95 originally, and then it was re-released in this packaging when they gave up on that. That came in like a clamshell style packaging, I believe. I've never seen one in the flesh, but I think I've seen them on eBay in that packaging. Anyway, this game is actually quite rare in this second range packaging and cost me £5, so one of the more expensive games in the collection. So let's take a look at the Willow Pattern. Let's take a look at the front cover then. Typical Silver Range packaging with the frame and the big flash in the top left corner, and we've got a samurai looking all mysterious on the front there in a red circle, and the logo there, the Willow Pattern, which is quite nicely done. Nice font with sort of leafy planty bits in it as well, so I quite like that cover. It's quite vibrant. Spine's got that logo on as well, of course, and on the back cover we've got a couple of screenshots which look quite colourful also, and the blurb about the game says, enter the Mandarin's palace and seek out the princess from amongst the oriental maze. So moving inside, we've got the big list of Silver Range games, not in alphabetical order for the different systems there. And then we've got the Silver Club application form on the inside there. We've seen all this stuff before, of course, in other packaging. So let's get on to the instructions. Willow Pattern, copyright 1985, Mr. Micro. And it says here, Chang's quest is to make his way through the beautiful but complex oriental maze in search of Princess Kung Shi. On his way he'll encounter sword-throwing samurai warriors as well as giants who guard the river crossings. There are items we've collected along the way, including a key which gives Chang access to the princess's hiding place. When he has Princess Kung Shi, Chang must race back through the maze pursued by Li Chi, Princess Kung Shi's furious father, until he reaches a boat and safety. Quite sounds a bit convoluted. Got some loading instructions as well, and then gameplay instructions are limited just to the controls really, keyboard or joystick. And it says at the bottom there, the boat is located somewhere on the left hand side of the maze and cannot be reached until Chang has rescued the princess. So pretty simplistic instructions there. The game's loading, as you can see. Here's the loading screen. Nothing too spectacular about it. It's got a nice sort of pattern around the side, and it says the Willow Pattern Adventure, which is its full name, and it says Mr. Micro, and it's got a Firebird logo, and that's pretty much it. Right then, here's the title screen of the game. As you can see, it says the Willow Pattern Adventure. It's by G. Duddle, I think that's Gary Duddle, and you've got the name of the development company, if you like, in the bottom right hand corner there, Mr. Micro. Now, something I found out was that this company actually released a game in 1984, just a year before this one, by the same developer, called Treasure Island, and it's pretty much exactly the same game. They've obviously changed some of the sprites to make it look more Chinese than Treasure Island-y, I suppose, so there's probably samurais instead of pirates, and you know, the scenery is not quite the same, but otherwise apparently the layout of the game is almost identical. So I guess credit to Mr. Duddle for managing to sell the same game twice. Also, something to mention, the Willow Pattern, as you can see, you've got this border around the screen, which was also on the loading screen. The Willow Pattern is something that's on like plates, like china plates, and it tells a story around the edge of the plate about a hero trying to rescue a princess or the love of his life or something like that. I don't know exactly what's going on about it. I read a little bit about it, but yeah, so that's what the Willow Pattern is, and that's why it's got that border around the screen. So otherwise, on the title screen, all you've got is a status bar which stays on the screen in-game. That's on the right hand side there. There's also some music playing in the background, which is pretty average SID tune, playing some oriental style music. So let's get on with the game. The music fades out and starts with another bit of music which sounds also almost identical. So you've got the hero is the little yellow guy, top right hand corner, just moving left and right a little bit there. Not very well animated. He's got about 2 frames of animation and it looks like a bad Spectrum sprite. So what we've got to do is negotiate this maze to find a key to rescue the princess and then escape with the princess to a boat somewhere. So you can pick up treasure. That's a treasure item there that I picked up, which has increased my score to 1%. That's more percentage completion than an actual score, I think. and you can also pick up weapons. So I'm going to grab this sword. Now the sword only works once. Basically you don't run into enemies with it, you fire it like a weapon. And what I'm going to do is go and fire it at this guy in the grey over here. Now to get to him I have to cross this bridge, and to do that it goes into a sort of mini game where you've got to jump across these stones and avoid the arms of these giant Chinese fellows across the top of the bridge. So you do that by basically jumping when the arm's at its lowest point. If you hit the arm then you get thrown back to the beginning and you lose a life. So there we go, I've managed to get across there. So I'm going to shoot this guy just to show you that when you fire your weapon, it kills the guy, but now I've got no weapon. So that when I come to the next guy, I would have to go all the way back to get the weapon. But actually there's another thing you can do, which is if you get close enough to them, and hopefully I do this right, and move out of the way, they actually throw their weapon at you, and then they haven't got another one. You can get safely close to them then. You can then pick their weapon up and throw it back at them. So that's handy. So let's see if we can find another weapon to dispatch that guy on the left there. Oh no, well, that wasn't very good. This guy, as soon as you walk on the screen, you walk straight into him and die, so that's not good. That's poor game design. But there's a sword there that I can pick up, so I'll grab that. And I can then move along and get this guy. Another bridge to cross here, and it's the same thing again. This gets tedious pretty quickly. So yeah, it's a flick screen sort of arcade adventure, I suppose you'd describe it as. You can see that willow pattern again on the border there on the left hand side. Graphically, the sprites are pretty terrible. They are Spectrum sprites, for the want of a better description, I would say. But the background graphics are reasonably nice. That's the boat there, by the way, that you've got to get to for the end of the game. As you can see, you can't get there at the moment. I like the sort of, they've obviously done an oriental sort of style with the sort of pagodas and sort of Chinese blossom trees and things like that. So quite nicely done. And they create a maze which I think there's only one way through, which is perhaps a little bit annoying. So we've got to do the same thing here again, where you get quite close to the guy and then run away from him basically, and wait for the sword to run out of momentum, I suppose. You can then pick that up and shoot it back at him. So let's see if we can go and find another sword. I'm actually stuck there, so I'm going to have to go all the way back now and grab one of the swords from the beginning, because I can't make any progress without one. So that's a little bit annoying. There's quite a bit of backtracking. I can't do anything to get past this guy, which is where I need to go until I've got another sword. So I'm going to have to go all the way back over the bridges. Let's just show the bridge again. I think these are probably the nicest graphics in the game in terms of the background graphics. My sprites are very poor white version of the previously yellow version. I think it's a little bit un-PC to have done the character bright yellow as well, actually, but there you go. That was very much of the time, I suppose. You wouldn't get away with doing Chinese characters coloured yellow nowadays. So yeah, I think the bridge graphics are quite nice, and the animation on the arms of these giants is pretty good as well. So what I'm going to do is make my way back to the beginning of the game. Actually, there's this guy, isn't there? Maybe I can get his sword if I'm quick. Oh, he's killed me. Yeah, so I'm not gonna risk losing more lives. I'm gonna make my way back to the beginning, grab the other sword, and then make my way back to the point that I've just been to. Okay, so I've been back, traversed 2 bridges, got a sword, come back across those 2 bridges again, quite annoyingly. Now I can shoot this guy and move on further into the game. One thing I haven't mentioned is the music, which is a very repetitive Chinese sounding tune, which you've heard all of in about 30 seconds. And it speeds up when you've got a weapon for some reason, which just makes it all a little bit more comical when the little guy's running around, as I'll just demonstrate here. Kind of reminds me of the Benny Hill thing, I was running around with the weapon really quickly with the music going quickly. Anyway, so yeah, basically this bit across the top of the map here, all you've got to do is keep getting close to these guards, wait for them to shoot at you and then run away. And shoot them with their own weapon, which is a bit strange. There's a lot of this throughout the game, it's just edging closer to them, waiting for them to shoot and then running away. It's quite boring really. This guy of course hasn't got a weapon to shoot at me, so now I've got to go all the way back and find a sword again. So there is a lot of annoying backtracking in the game. But I am making some progress at least. Only got a couple of lives left. I did lose one as I was going back across one of the bridges. So this looks pretty straightforward. You just go down either one of these two channels, shoot whichever one is in the way and keep progressing on. So what I'm going to do is just basically carry on and see if I can find anything interesting in the game without losing any more lives. So I've made a bit of progress, but basically it's just going through the same old mazes. There's not a lot of variety in this game. So I'm just going to see if I can get a little bit further, but I'm rapidly becoming bored with the game. Not my kind of game, to be honest. I'm not a huge fan of these kind of games. And I think probably the game it most resembles to me is something like Saberwolf, which was a far superior game in terms of, well, graphics and gameplay really. There's a few little tricky bits where it's quite hard to get them to throw the swords at you, but once you get into it, this process becomes fairly straightforward. Oops, he says, he then runs into one and dies. As yet I've not found this key. Oh, he killed me. Oh, well that's it, game over. I can't really be bothered to progress any further. I have played through a bit further in the past and got the key. Don't remember where it was in the maze, but beyond that I've not gone much further. But to be honest, there's not much more I can say about the game. You've seen what you're going to see. The variety of graphics doesn't really change at any point that I've seen. It just goes on and on with the same sort of mazes. There's lots of backtracking as well. So let's just get on with the review score, shall we? So packaging I thought was pretty decent. The image on the front cover was nice. The instructions lacked a bit of detail, but overall it looked pretty good. So I'm going to give that 7 out of 10 for the packaging. Presentation's pretty dull. It's just this screen, quite nicely drawn, but nothing else going on. There's no high score table or anything like that. The graphics I think are fairly bland. The sort of maze graphics are quite nicely done, but the main sprites are not good. And it's all a bit boring after, you know, 20 or 30 screens worth of it. So I'm going to go with 5 out of 10 for the graphics. Similarly, the sound is quite boring as well. You've heard the tune within the first sort of 30 to 60 seconds, and from that point on it just gets more and more annoying listening to it over and over again. There's also no sound effects in the game, so I'm going to give it a score of 4 for the sound. And finally, playability, well, it's reasonably playable, I suppose. It's a little bit tricky in places. There's some frustrating bits like going over those bridges and trying to get the swords off the enemies, and it being a little bit tricky as to whether you can get away from them in time. So I'm going to give it 5 out of 10 for playability. It's pretty average, to be honest. Not a great game. Not my kind of thing either. I'm more of an action game fan than an exploration game, and I think the fact that you'll get to a certain point in the game and then die, and the next game you play is going to have to be absolutely identical with the same backtracking backwards and forwards through the maze. It's just quite boring really. So for me, not really worth the $1.99 asking price. Overall score, by the way, is 5.7, which again I think reflects the game. It's pretty average, it's middle of the road. If you like those kind of games you might think it was worth the money, but for me it wasn't. So if you've got any thoughts about the Willow Pattern Adventure, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And that's it for this game review. Okay then, time as always for you to help me choose a game to play in a future video, and this time the theme is mythical creatures, and the two games to choose from are Mermaid Madness, or Rainbow Dragon. So mythical creatures, mermaids or dragons. Let me know in the comments which game you prefer me to play in a future video. That's it for this time. See you again soon, and thanks for watching.